Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Aaron Diaz, and you're listening to episode number 25 of Live the Good Life from the podcast studios of Aaron's Wine Chronicles corporate headquarters in the heart of Washington Wine Country. Today, I'll be joined by two dynamic young women who represent hundreds of thousands of Generation Z up-and-coming wine lovers. And I recently had the opportunity to tour these two ladies on a day-long wine tasting adventure in Walla Walla Wine Country. It was the first formal wine tasting for one of my guests, and I believe only the second or third formal tasting for the other. Needless to say, both of my guests are essentially brand new to the world of wine, and they were both excited to join me to learn about wine tasting and wine pairings. The objective of today's podcast is to take advantage of this rare occasion and be able to discuss some fresh new perspectives on wine and wine tasting with some energetic and insightful young adults. So let's get this started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you my youngest daughter, Gabrielle Diaz, and her best friend, Madison Rummel, to the show. Oh, they like you here at Aaron's Wine Chronicles.
Well, I'm really excited, so thank you for having me. I'm ready to get into this.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks for having us, Aaron.
Sure. Thanks very much for both of you taking the time to come down and join the podcast. So, to get started, why don't you give us a little background and introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay. Well, my name's Gabrielle. I'm 23 years old. I grew up here. I went to high school at Delta in Pasco, Washington. I'm here to visit for the holidays. Right now I live in California, down in LA. And I've met my best friend in preschool. We've been best friends for a long time. So I'm really excited to get into this and experience the whole wine tasting escapade with her and with my dad. I'm really excited.
Yeah, awesome. I'm Madison. I grew up here. I used to live in California as well, but I was born and raised here, went to Richland High School. I'm 24. I'm really excited to be here, so thanks for having me.
Again, thank you guys for joining us. Having you guys on the show is really fun, especially for me. It's a new thing for Aaron's Wine Chronicles Live the Good Life because you guys are the youngest guests on the show to date. Now, granted, this is our 25th episode, but typically people are in their late 30s, early 40s on up. And I just turned 60 here a few weeks back. So there's a lot of old fogies on this podcast, and it's good to get some young blood in here is what I'm saying.
Yes.
And now, typically, while we're in the studio, one of the traditions that we have is that we're usually enjoying a libation of some sort. And today, the girls are enjoying an Aaron's Wine Chronicles house drink, which is essentially a pineapple rum martini, and I am enjoying a single malt scotch over a rock. So that's the way we roll here. I want to describe to you the wine tasting agenda and the dinner plans that we had when we went to Walla Walla to facilitate this discussion and get the insights on their experiences in Walla Walla last week. We ended up leaving Tri-Cities around 10:15 in the morning. And for those of you who are not from the area, Walla Walla is about 55 to 60 minute drive from the Tri-Cities. So it takes an hour to get there, an hour to get back. We decided to visit 4 tasting rooms and then have dinner at T-Max, which is a nice restaurant in downtown Walla Walla. They have a great menu. They've revamped their facility and their menu, and things are just exquisite. So we love that place. We were home around 5:30 that evening, and from all of the information that the girls gave me on the way home, they had a great time. They learned a lot, and that's what we're here to do, is to talk with them about their takeaways and to help convey the insights and perspectives of the Gen Z generation when it comes to wine to the wine industry. And I know that there are a number of wine industry folks who listen to this podcast, and I think people need to get educated on what the younger generation is really looking for when it comes to wine. Because if you're marketing your wine and you're creating wines and crafting wines for your customers, and you're not doing it for the entire spectrum of your customer set, you're not doing it justice. And eventually, the younger generation is going to come along, and if they don't like what they see, like what they hear, like what they taste and smell, they're not going to buy. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to fold. So that's what I'm hoping that this podcast will help do, is to give you guys a better understanding, a better grasp of what the younger generation is looking for when it comes to wine. Granted, there are only 2 data points out of hundreds of thousands of Gen Zers out there, but they're 2 data points that I really trust because they were with me and they were going out tasting with me. I was trying to give them the best shot possible at enjoying the wines and the whole process. So let's talk about how each of you got into wine. What is your experience with wine before this came about, this tasting with me? How did you get into wine? Start with you, Gabrielle.
Well, honestly, I got into wine at a young age. As soon as you started getting into wine, I started getting into wine in a low-key way. So I would go wine tasting with you and just sit there and watch and hear your takes on how wine is to you.
Remember Terra Blanca? We'd go out there and we'd have food.
We'd go and I'd enjoy the hors d'oeuvres, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd love the cheese and the nuts and the crackers. But I never really found an appeal from the smell of wine or anything like that, unless it was like a white wine. But started at a young age with you, and I just kept it along slowly.
Cool. How about you?
So I actually took a course here at WSU Tri-Cities for my viticulture and enology degree. I did not end up pursuing that degree, but it was very interesting getting to know, how wine is made.
Yeah.
I definitely, the chemistry was a little bit of a challenge. There's a lot of chemistry that goes into winemaking.
It's very complex.
It's insane, but it was very interesting walking through the vineyards, knowing all the diseases, all the things that can happen to your grapes, So that's how I started getting into wine. I wasn't drinking wine at the time. We would taste the wine that they made,
Right.
but I didn't care for the taste. I didn't really honestly care. I didn't end up pursuing that degree, but now I'm a little bit more interested in the wine industry.
That's good. So you guys actually have some history, both family-wise and education-wise, behind you. That's a great start. And, wine to me is something that elevates the moment. It's not like chugging beer or Jell-O shots or whiskey or whatever. It just isn't. I think wine elevates conversation and it enhances a meal. It's elegant. It adds class to anything. Even if you're eating a hamburger and you have a glass of red wine with it, now you're eating a high-class hamburger, even if it's just McDonald's, because you've got that Cabernet Sauvignon in the glass with it. That's just my own little take. So, do you guys have any favorite types of wine right now? Before you guys went into going to Walla Walla, what kind of wine did you drink or do you drink?
Honestly, I just drink white wines. I would drink red wine occasionally, but it wasn't for the tasting and the experience. It was mostly just to drink it. But I actually enjoy white wines. Like not the dry ones, but the more sweet white wines, or maybe a little bit dry, but the sweeter ones like rosés or the sweet rosés or the Rieslings. I do like those. But yeah.
Honestly, I started drinking box wines. Like I just went for the cheapest box wine, something to just get the job done, get me a little buzzed. And honestly, after that, my parents offered me, glasses of wine. I had no clue what it was, but I just took it, drank it, and I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
But I noticed that they're all different,
Right.
So that's what grew my curiosity in the different wines.
Yeah. The normal, I don't want to say normal, but the typical trajectory for people getting into wine, oftentimes they'll start with the sweeter wines, the dessert wines, the ports, or the late harvest Rieslings, late harvest Semillon, those nectar of the gods type wines that I really like with a cigar, to be honest with you. I love those with a cigar. But, and then gradually you go to your lighter reds like Pinot Noir or Gamay, Beaujolais, something like that, or I don't know. There are a number of lighter red wines that you start with that have notes of strawberry and raspberry and those kinds of things. And then you get in, eventually, if you continue, pushing forth with wine, you'll get into the fuller-bodied reds, the Cabernet Sauvignons and the Tempranillos and all those types of wines. So anyway, I don't want to turn this whole podcast into a therapy session, but what I do want to do is I want you guys kind of like take yourself back, like you're going back in hypnosis, to last week when we traveled to Walla Walla. What were your thoughts going into the tasting? What were you anticipating? Because we had talked it up for a couple of weeks, and then you showed up from LA, and we were like, "Hey, we're going to do this." So, what were you anticipating?
I was just really excited. Honestly, I was just really anticipating the whole learning process. I was really excited to learn about how to appreciate wine because I didn't at all. I honestly didn't appreciate it how I know I should now. But I was really excited to learn about the different flavors and how they go together with different things. That's what I was excited about the most, I think.
Cool. Madison?
Yeah, so when we planned the whole trip, I was very excited, honestly, because always growing up here with hanging out with Gabrielle. I mean, Aaron was always wine tasting. I mean, he was always, always had a bottle open, and I was very interested, but I wasn't 21 at the time. So, I mean, when he asked us, hey, you guys want to go wine tasting? I was kind of like speechless. I was like, yeah, let's go. I want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of outlined the agenda of what we did in Walla Walla. And what I'd like to do is talk about the very first stop. And we'll just go through chronologically the different stops that we had and get your experiences and what you learned, what you took away. Mm-hmm. So our first stop was Woodward Canyon Winery, located in Touchy. Touchy is a real small town out on the outskirts of Walla Walla, and it's kind of one of the first wineries that you hit as you're driving into Walla Walla from the west. So when we got in there, of course, Terry and crew, they've seen my face many, many times. So I come in with you guys, and we belly up to the bar and we start the wine tasting. And of course, they started us with a white, right? And typically, they'll start you with a white or a rosé, and then they'll take you into their early wines, the wines that are just kind of general purpose wines, table wines, things that are lower cost and lower in complexity and body most often, and things that you can just have pizza, hamburgers, mac and cheese, that kind of stuff. And then as you get down the line, they'll start getting you to the more expensive wines, the wines that are their flagship wines, fuller bodied, more complex, more flavors and all of that stuff, right? And of course, the price goes up too.
Yeah.
And you notice that as we went down the line, boom, 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 all of a sudden the last 2 or 3 were like, oh, wow, this one's $100, this one's $120. This one is like old vines, right? I mean, it's like, that means it's fabricated from grapes from the oldest vines in the vineyard, right? So anyway, you're going through the list. What were your takeaways? Terry was talking about how nobody's wrong when you smell something or taste something. You're not wrong. It's just the way you interpret something, right? And you got some notes of strawberry. I think on
did.
One, and then you validated it, right? Yeah. I mean, you looked on the thing, and it was like it actually. The winemaker or the people who were doing the descriptions also put strawberry.
Yeah.
I didn't get strawberry on it, but you did.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just like. Here I am. I'm a wine guy. I mean, I drink a lot of wines, but that doesn't mean that I can discriminate and taste every single note that's in there. Yeah. Sometimes I just get a few notes, and they might be different than what they wrote down. But that was a good right out of the gate, man. That was like one of your third or fourth wines out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's what I really enjoyed about this whole experience is we all liked different wines. We all had different opinions. Me and Gabrielle actually shared a favorite at this winery. It was the Estate Reserve. Yeah. We actually got a bottle of that too.
That's a red blend, right?
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that one. But other wines, Gabrielle didn't like and I liked, or I liked one and Gabrielle didn't like one. Yeah. So
that happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's very personal.
Everybody's tongues are different.
If we all ordered a pizza, right? If we all ordered pizza here, and I said, I want anchovies on my pizza, what would you guys say?
Oh, no.
Yes, yum.
You love them?
Yes.
Okay, I
never knew that.
I don't. First
them.
of all, I wouldn't order them, but if I did, I don't think she'd like them.
I'd shut that down.
Right?
Yum.
But that doesn't mean that anchovies are bad on pizza, because I know a lot of people who love anchovies on their pizza.
Yes. This is new information to me that she likes anchovies.
That's your best friend. You're supposed to know everything about her.
I thought I did.
Well, there you go.
But I'm using that as an analogy, right? And wine is very personal. Wine is hugely personal. You're going to love wines that I don't, and vice versa. And then there's going to be some that we all love because they're just that good.
Yeah. Like that Estate Reserve.
Right?
Yeah.
That Estate Reserve was really good. Oh. So final takeaways on the first winery.
I really enjoyed it. I think it was a good first step. I think it was a great first winery to go to because it opened up my taste buds a little bit, so I was able to like I'm glad we experienced that one first, because then we got to go to the next one, and I really liked that one a lot based on the variety that they offered. So it was a good opener.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I mean, Terry was amazing. He walked us through each one. He was very knowledgeable. He's been there a while, I feel like, because he just knew so much about everything and their wines as well.
Our second winery was Reininger Winery, which is just about a 5 to 7 minute drive down the road. Now, Reininger, they offered us like 7, 8, 9 different wines total. They did a couple of side-by-sides, and it was really good. I mean, I really liked it. Tell us about, I want to hear your guys' perspectives on Reininger. I think the girls are having a moment here. Okay.
Okay, Gabrielle.
We're good.
Okay. Anyways, my experience. I mean, that was my favorite winery. It blew it out of the water. I mean, Hannah was amazing. She was very informal of everything, and the aesthetics too. I mean, you walk in and it's beautiful in there.
Yeah,
the
it's
views.
a nice tasting room.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So they do have a wine that's a Carmenere. And they've had it for a number of years. And I think one of the things they did was they explained it to you guys that was the lost grape for a while there due to a disease that hit France back in the 1800s, whenever it was. It wiped them out, and they thought that there was no Carmenere left. And then it popped up in South America, down in Chile, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, they were marketing it as something like Merlot or I don't know what it was. But the story, I've heard the story multiple different versions of the story, but apparently somebody ended up taking some root stocks of the Carmenere before it was, and taking it to South America and planting it. They didn't know what they got. They thought it was something else. And then they did some DNA testing or whatever, and they found out, hey, this is Carmenere. And so it wasn't, it wasn't wiped off the face of the planet by the disease, which is great because it's my wife's favorite. And I think you liked the Carmenere as well.
That was my favorite from that winery, I think.
It
really stuck out. It was amazing. And that was an extra, too. She offered that after.
That's right. Yeah, it was an extra.
One of the bonus pours.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts now that you're not laughing anymore?
Honestly,
have your composure?
I really enjoyed that winery a lot. Not only was she like closer to our age group, so we were able to like relate to her way of communicating more, but I really enjoyed the knowledge that she was giving us, like learning about the history and everything. It was really informative, and it honestly made me want to try the wines more when she was explaining it.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this towards the end of the podcast, but one of the takeaways I'm hearing from both of you is that you really value when somebody takes the time to teach you about the wines you're drinking, give you the history, and help you understand how the wine was made, why it was made that way,
where they get their grapes
from, and all that stuff, right? If they just throw the wine in front of you and say, "Oh, this is our Carmenere, hope you like it," and they turn around and walk away, it leaves you kind of like, "Well, okay, thanks for what?"
Yeah.
Even when she was giving us the history of the winemaker, like she was like, "Oh yeah," telling us about the different labels and explaining like, "Oh, these are his initials, and this is how this
CPR,
label came
the
about."
CPR wine,
like the painting in the back, how he wasn't the painting in the back, it was him. That was really cool to learn too.
Yeah, exactly.
So any kind of history, honestly, it's just informative and good.
Honestly, because we really honestly were going into this whole experience not knowing anything about
Wanting
wine.
to learn, being eager
and
about
she
it.
knew that.
Yeah.
And she definitely took time out of her day to explain everything.
And she even said something as we were wrapping up. She said something about there's a lot of jobs in the industry if you're interested in getting into the wine industry. There's apparently she was mentioning that there's a lot of openings.
Yeah.
Maybe in Walla Walla. So anyway.
And the Columbia Valley too, as well.
True. Our third winery visit was Seven Hills. Now, Seven Hills is a favorite stop of Gabby and I. Gabby loves their Pentad. Their Pentad is is their high-end flagship wine, which is essentially a Bordeaux-style blend. And she fell in love with it. And, I mean, as a matter of fact, I think at this stop, I bought a bottle of the Pentad for Gabby because she loves it. This is where we ordered some hors d'oeuvres, and we also ordered some cheese. You made mention, Madison, that you were hoping that maybe somewhere along the line we could pair some cheese with the wine because you've heard so much about wine and cheese.
Yeah.
And actually that occurred at Seven Hills, and it wasn't planned. It just so happened that, and this is a first for me because I've been there many times, and they never had a wine pairing, already chosen cheeses that they have chosen specifically to pair with 5 of their wines. And I'd never tasted it either, so it was a new experience for all of us, and it worked out perfectly because it was something you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So tell me about your guys' experience there at Seven Hills.
Honestly, the pairing the cheeses with the different wines elevated the whole experience.
Definitely.
I mean, and they took the time and they went actually to a local place in town to get all the cheese.
Yeah, it was in Milton Freewater. Actually, yeah.
And I mean, the cheeses were amazing. Cheeses I've never tasted before. And it really elevated each wine and made me enjoy the wine a little bit more.
Yeah, honestly, I've really enjoyed the whole cheese pairing. Like, I've never liked goat cheese. Ever. And the first one was a goat cheese with a Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, but on those crackers, it was
really good.
Really
I honestly
good.
wanted more goat cheese.
Yeah.
And more white wine.
Right.
But it went down the list. We had that one. The second one was a brie. The third one was like a peppercorn type of cheese, and then there was Parmesan Reggiano or something like that. It was the last one.
Yeah.
But honestly, the goat cheese and the brie were probably by far like the first time I tried it and the best ones to pair with the wines. I really enjoyed that.
So, do you guys recall when Denise, one of the ladies, kind of blonde hair, she came up and asked you guys? She's like, okay. She goes, I don't want to ask Aaron because he's an old fogey like me. I want to talk to you guys about this, right? And then she said, so you guys are young. When you guys go wine tasting, and when you guys go out looking at wineries, wine tasting rooms, what do you look for? What attracts you? What makes you want to go in as opposed to walk on by? And you guys sat there and had a discussion. I want you guys to take us through kind of some of the ideas that you were talking to Denise about, because as far as our listeners go on this podcast, a lot of people in the industry, they want to hear this kind of information. They don't get a lot of feedback from people who are being open and honest about what they would like to see and what attracts them versus what they don't like and what doesn't attract them.
Yeah. So honestly, the first thing I would say like that pulls me in would be the visual appearance of the winery, the ambiance, how it looks, the level of classiness in a sense.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't want to go somewhere that's just like a tore down cardboard box that says wine tasting,
Right.
If it looks it doesn't have to be elegant, but just a little more aesthetically pleasing. Pleasing to the
Catches
eye.
the eye
Right.
when you walk by,
Maybe exactly.
And the history of the building that she went into.
It was a mill.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so she was teaching us about that as well. So
Yeah.
I think, but honestly, the first thing is the lights, the way it looks, the ambiance. It's
gotta draw me in.
Aesthetic.
Because there's so many wineries down
Something
there.
for me when I go in, if I'm not comfortable when I sit, because I'm going to be sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour tasting wine, and if the chairs are uncomfortable and they're like just hard or whatever, and my feet are dangling, I'm not like 6'3", right? So my feet, if I'm sitting on a stool, some of those bar stools or the tall stools, whatever, they're not comfortable, or it's for me, it's a turn off.
Yeah.
Their wine has to be damn good if I'm going to stay there and drink the wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would probably say the comfort level definitely.
Yeah.
The ambiance, the visual aesthetic, and also the way that they greet me.
Customer service.
If I go in there and they're not like like, hey, welcome in, like we're glad to have you. You're looking for a tasting, or if they're like, okay, are you going to help them or drive to help them? Like it's just the way that they greet you is really important.
Yeah, I've been to thousands of wineries, wine tasting rooms from the East Coast to California and all over the Northwest.
Yeah, I've been with you to Napa.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I've had every range of experience known to man. I've had them snub their nose at me and look directly at me and then look away for 10 minutes while I stood there. And then I turned around and left. I mean, there's been times when I've just been, fine. You don't want to talk to me or even mention, how welcome, whatever. I don't even want to give you my business. And I was there to buy, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't want my business, I don't want to give it to them. And so I understand what you guys are saying. Customer service is a huge thing, especially how they greet you. And you don't have to be a wine expert for them to want to take time. They should want to take time
and teach you.
And teach you. The first thing they should say is, so, hey, have you visited us before? And if not, are you experienced wine drinker or are you new to wine?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, I'm really kind of new to wine, I've only drank a few bottles, then they can take that as a opportunity to sit you down and really make you feel comfortable and welcome. And a lot of places don't do that.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me is how they greet you. Because
Yeah.
if I feel uncomfortable, I'm just gonna walk out.
Right.
Yeah.
And that goes with anything, winery, restaurant, anything. If I'm not greeted in a respectful manner or like even, like any kind of greet, then I don't want to be there.
So what about this access thing? Like kids your age, I call you kids because you're my kid, right? And you're my kid's best friend. So you're kids to me, right?
Yeah.
But you guys, a lot of people want to go to the beach and pop open a can of wine of wine and drink it because they have wine in cans and they have them in Boda bags and everything else. I mean, to me, it just takes, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just have an ice cold beer. Just give me a beer, or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't find that. To me, I just think that that's not wine.
Okay.
I think canned wine is like, honestly, to me, it's like a disgrace to the wine industry.
That's funny because I think you ask people in my generation, the baby boomers, and they say the same thing.
Like,
they
I
say,
just don't find
that's a slap in the face.
I just think that's
ridiculous.
like, hey, let's go put some fizziness in a can and call it wine.
Right.
Because like now that I've gone wine tasting, it's like, no, this is wine.
Yeah.
Like the whole, but.
There's a time and a place to drink wine.
Yeah.
Even if
I
it's every
believe.
day, it's not. In
You
a
don't
can.
go to the beach and pop open a. I mean, it depends,
Yeah.
but you wanna set the right stage.
Tone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what about pricing? What about how do you guys feel about price? I mean, is the price of the actual tasting, like some places you go in and it's $50 to $100 just to taste. And then if you want that tasting fee waived, you have to buy 2 bottles. And the bottles are not cheap. The bottles may be $75 to $150 a piece. So now all of a sudden you're out a couple of $100 regardless of what you do. And all you went in there was to taste and see if you liked something to buy. And then what about the price of the actual wine itself? Do any of those things impact you guys?
I would say before I went wine tasting, I wouldn't have thought of either of those. Honestly, I would have just went in. If it was too expensive, I would, I would. Yeah. But now, the tasting fee doesn't. I feel like the price of the wine is based off the wine. I feel like they price their wine based off how they
feel
it's worth. Yeah. So I feel like that doesn't matter as much as the tasting fee, because some people can charge way an extreme amount, or some people can do a reasonable amount.
I mean, you went to Napa with us, and you know what the fees are like there.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But depending on the winery, I feel like it could be worth it.
Right.
If it's a gorgeous, a gorgeous scenery, and there's, you could take pictures, then it'd be worth the $100 tasting fee, if you could spend a little more time than just standing there drinking a couple wines.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I respect it. I mean, I'm going to pay for what I get. Honestly, if I am feeling crazy and want to go spend $150 somewhere and go tasting, then I need to be prepared, but I'm down to do it. It's all about the experience, so I got to have the good customer service. If I go and spend $150 on a wine tasting and I don't have good customer service, I'm probably going to be a little bit pissed. But if I have great customer service, gladly pay it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anything else jump to mind that I didn't mention or that you guys didn't bring up?
No.
Okay. So, stop number 4. The final winery was on the south side of Walla Walla. It was Patterson Cellars. And, you guys had mentioned early in the day, hey, do you think there's going to be a place maybe where we can get taste some sweet wines? And I said, well, sometimes they'll have a dessert wine or they might have a port style wine, but no, it didn't happen the first 3, right? Then we got to Patterson Cellars. And there was a port style wine, and then there was a dessert wine.
Yes.
The dessert was like a late harvest Roussanne. Roussanne. Yeah.
Yes, and we both got a bottle
was actually
of that.
delicious.
That was my favorite.
Yep.
I remember wrapping yours up last night and putting it in your suitcase, flying out in a few days.
Bubble wrapped it up.
I used a bunch of bubble wrap. That's not breaking, but
yeah, the first tasting that we had there was a sparkling champagne,
it was like
type
a champagne
of
type
wine. I really liked how the bubbles hit my tongue, but the flavor was not there.
You know why they do that though?
Yeah.
They do that to cleanse your palate. It's almost like a cracker, but better.
Oh, okay. Because
champagne will typically cleanse your palate, and then
for that.
Now you're like, okay. Now when you start tasting the wines again, you're back to, because we had been to 3 different places, plus we had cheese and all kinds of stuff at the previous winery, and it was good that they did that.
Well, when you use it in that sense, I can tell now that is a good cleanser, because then we tried a couple whites, like the rosés and everything after that, and it was easier to taste them. But if I were to buy, I would never buy that. I would never drink that sparkling wine.
But you guys both liked that late harvest.
Oh yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, I have a bottle too.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, definitely saving that for a special occasion. But even the port, I definitely enjoyed.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
It's
different.
not my favorite, but it was still good.
Yeah.
It was still good.
Very viscous. It's
more of a dark,
heavier, thicker.
Dark,
right?
yeah.
So what were your final takeaways from the wineries that we went to? I mean, we've talked about all 4 wineries. Woodward Canyon, Reininger, Seven Hills, and Patterson Cellars.
If I were to rank them, I would probably, just based off experience, I would probably do Reininger, number 1.
Okay.
And then Seven Hills, and then Patterson, and then Woodward.
Okay.
Just based off my experience that I had, and also the tastings. I think that was really good.
Yeah.
How about you?
I agree with Gabrielle, honestly, how I would rate those in order. But I just loved how every single winery, I got a different experience, and I walked away with different knowledge. I would have to say that some wineries let's see, what was the last one that we went to?
Patterson.
Patterson. He wasn't really as informing as the other ones. He kind of just came up, handed us the wine, and walked away.
Yeah, just like
Yes.
poured it.
You know, that I didn't really like that, honestly. But it was still a good experience, still good wine. But I definitely liked going in, having the time to sit down and learn about the wine and know what I'm drinking, where it came from, you know?
Yeah. So next on the agenda was dinner. And we ended up at T-Max.
So good.
And we were hungry. By that time, we had
delicious.
built up quite an appetite.
Quite
Yeah.
appetite.
So we're at T-Max, and my order is typically always the same. I mean, I love the bolognese with the Wagyu. It's the Wagyu beef and bolognese. It's just, right?
Yeah.
And what did you order?
Well, me and Madison had the same thing, actually.
Yes.
Well, so we'll first start off. We had hors d'oeuvres that were delicious. We had calamari and we had pork belly.
Oh, that's
my
right. We had the
gosh.
pork
The
belly,
pork belly
and
was
calamari.
amazing.
So good.
And
Yeah.
the chili sauce for the calamari was just delicious.
yeah,
But me and Madison both got is like a smoked Gouda mac and cheese with these like
Lobster.
It wasn't
Oh, it
right.
was a
Yeah, with the
lobster
lobster
tail
tail on top.
on top.
But the noodles weren't regular macaroni noodles. It was like long.
Long.
Like the chicken noodle soup noodles that were like long and curly. That's what it was. So
Okay.
it was like a really like a unique macaroni, but it was
Well, you
delicious.
didn't finish it. And you brought leftovers home, and I ate them.
And I came home and they were gone.
Yeah. Daddy took
gosh.
care of that.
The next day, cold. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
The next day, cold.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been
And the
able to
dessert.
experience that.
The dessert. I got
Okay.
pumpkin pie cheesecake.
Okay.
I got
What did I get, Gabrielle?
Well, I got the vanilla bean gelato,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got a cranberry tiramisu.
That's right.
And both of theirs had like little pomegranate seeds on the side.
Oh, God.
And I had a mint leaf in my gelato.
Mint leaf.
A mint.
Yeah.
It was delicious though. That gelato was.
it was a
delicious.
great dinner. And, they have a really good wine list, actually. But we were wined out. By that time,
Yeah.
we were wined
Yeah, I think I just had a mocktail.
Yeah, you
but
did.
it was very lavendery,
Yep.
Yeah.
lavender orange.
So now we've talked about the agenda. We went through the 4 wineries. We talked about dinner. You guys learned a lot along the way, and there's much more to learn. And the more you do this kind of thing,
Yeah.
the more you go out and taste wines, the more in control you are going to be over what you do like and what you don't like. Because the world of wine is huge. There's so many different types of wines and styles of wines. And not only that, but every year the wines change, right? A new vintage comes along. And it doesn't matter if you pull the same grapes from the same block of the vineyard
Yeah.
at the same time of year, next year and the year after, they're going to be different. They're going to be different. It's Mother Nature's way of putting
Yeah.
a fingerprint on it. And wine evolves in the bottle, wine evolves in the barrel, and everything
beyond.
changes. Everything
Yeah.
changes, right? And so that's the nice thing about wine is you're always going to experience and learn new things when you're drinking wine.
Yes.
So
And I really appreciated this first experience because I was so excited.
Yeah.
I know.
I've been talking to you since I turned 21 that I've always wanted to go wine tasting with you. But since I haven't been in town, it's been difficult to do that. But I'm really appreciative that you took us and took my best friend and I to go wine tasting.
I'm
It was a
happy
great,
that I
it was
was
a
able
fun
to
time.
do it.
It was amazing.
It was
I had so
amazing.
much
Yeah.
fun.
And I definitely want to try to go to some wineries here in the Tri-Cities.
Yeah.
Now that I kind of know how it, like the pour buckets, like just the whole
Right.
process,
Right.
I had no clue.
Well, remember, when we first went to Woodward, the first thing we did was
Yeah.
we looked at it. We looked at the color. Remember, we
Yes,
swirled it.
yes.
And we put the color against the white background and looked at the different tints and hues of
Yeah.
red versus
Opaqueness of
purple
the
and
wine, too.
opaqueness of the
Yeah.
wine and all of that. And then from there we smelled.
And the different
then we
ways to smell
tasted.
it, though.
Yeah,
It's like
different
Yeah,
ways to
if you,
smell
different
it.
if you just put your
nostrils.
nose in,
Yep.
it's not the same as
Right.
switching your dominant nostril or rubbing
Right.
it around the glass
Yeah.
first because it's a way different smell when you do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what you taught me.
It's all
as
about
well.
surface
Yeah.
area, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
So
great.
so it sounds to me like it was a really worthwhile event. for you.
Definitely
Yeah.
want to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And there is no shortage of wineries here, Red Mountain and Prosser and those areas too. So maybe the next time we do it, we'll stick around local and we'll go
Yeah.
up,
Colsolari,
up
Terra Blanca.
to the west.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, Gabrielle, Madison, thank you for joining me on this episode and for providing your perspectives and insights when it comes to wine and wine tasting. I appreciate the opportunity to have you both on the show today, and thank you all for joining us on Live the Good Life. That's all we have for today's episode. Again, for more of Living the Good Life, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Aaron's Wine Chronicles, or you can go online at aaronswinechronicles.com. And for a video podcast version of this episode, visit my YouTube channel at the @ Aaron's Wine Chronicles 6666. Thank you all for listening. And remember, wherever you go, whenever you can. Always live the good life. Until next time.